Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I got the snow blocking my door here. It has been wicked. We've got -8, -9 overnight temps, but we finally got some sunlight going on in here. We got our crops and most of them got decimated. A lot of them are still alive, but a lot of them are dead. You can see this entire bed is pretty well smashed in, everything but our onions and some of our kales there. A lot of our lettuce has survived, and the fact is that our compost heater is not active anymore. So once we lost the heat from our compost, we lost all of the heat that we're putting into the floor of the greenhouse. Our water, you can see where our water comes out there. This runs up underneath all of our bricks and comes back out. You can see where it's coming out of the soil and it dumps back into the overflow, which is frozen. So I have my pump in there, which is not good. So make sure you drop me a like if you want to see me reactivate this pile in the middle of winter. I don't spend a lot of time in this little greenhouse here. This was just purely experimental for the beginning, and it's nice to come out and have some type of harvest. And there's probably some crops that will survive this, like our kales and stuff, but for the most part, we have a lot of lost energy and a lot of lost work in this little greenhouse. Feels good to have some sun coming in here, but the sun can't save us at nighttime, and all of that heat gets banked in here and basically stored up. You can see where all of the snow is sitting on top of all of our leaf bags. We've got great insulation on the southern wall. We didn't want them too high to block any sunlight, and we've got leaf bags all the way up to almost chest high on our northern wall, so I could smell those starting to compost. They were actually composting within themselves, actually creating some heat on this northern wall, and all of that snow packed up on it from the wind blowing it in and this crazy weather we've been having, the storm that hit the whole country. We have some good insulation factors on the whole northern wall all the way around, and our compost was insulating our wall pretty well too. But our compost back here has lost all of its energy, and we're just blowing basically cold air through the greenhouse. I mean, it's circulating, but we're not getting any heat to aid in the growing of these plants or to actually warm the floor up. And we passively warm this up all day long. And our little system here I have shut off. Like I said, our water's froze up and our little timer is not on. So we're not running any water right now because we don't want to break anything or have any failures or catastrophic failure. I want to be able to recharge the system, recharge our compost, and thaw the water out and be able to continue to run. I know we've lost a lot of crops in here already, and we had crops sprouting. We had some cabbage and leeks, and you can see they all came up, and maybe the leeks will survive, but I doubt it, because we had the lack of our compost heating in here. So what I'm planning on doing is reactivating this compost pile, and I picked up this huge bag of urea. Now this is going to be my secret weapon. So we've had such darn cold temperatures. I really don't want to dig out the chicken bedding right now because I'll have to replace all that, and it's just a pain right now. Collecting a large bucket of urine to be able to inoculate all of the wood chips I'm going to dump on the back of this pile here. We're going to double up our pile size. It's about 2 cubic yards. I want to be at about 4 cubic yards by the time I re-inoculate the pile and get it going. I've had a lot of questions, comments, concerns on reactivating a compost pile in the middle of winter here, and that is a huge deal for me. I have to have this compost warm, so getting all of that activated is going to be a major challenge. I got this big bag of easy peasy urea. That's a great name for it there. So this is 4600. We've got all nitrogen, fast releasing nitrogen. This bag was maybe like $10 or something like that, and this is way more than I will need to actually activate the pile. But being that it's nice little crystallized balls like this, and they're fast release, and once I throw some warm water onto the compost and everything's situated, all of these will release and start to break those wood chips down very quickly and build up heat very quickly. So with all the freezing temperatures, if you're just doing an absolutely normal compost pile, it might be very hard unless you're inoculating it with some good nitrogen, and if you got some good solid burnable material or compostable material like wood chips. If you're just using straw and grasses, stuff like that, you're really going to need a massive pile in order to create enough heat to last the duration of a couple months or even longer. And when we have these negative temperatures, we had like negative 50, 60 mile an hour winds blowing over this greenhouse. It was freezing outside. So it doesn't shock me that all of these plants are not doing well in this greenhouse. I just showed our large greenhouse, and the active pile is definitely doing its job. We've got our second layer up down there. This is only a single layer greenhouse, and you can see I've got a gap between all of the layers of my actual bubble wrap. So I've got like a 3-inch gap between all the bubble wrap and stuff. So this is technically not just a single layer. We've got a ton of leaf bags, like I said. So we've done everything we can to insulate this little DIY greenhouse, and I really wanted to share all this. This is actually kind of exciting and depressing at the same time because I lost a lot of energy, but I'm going to be able to show everybody the reality of winter and the reality of trying to get a large compost pile heated up in winter. And we like to use wood chips because of the density and the burn duration on those. So insulating our compost pile is very, very important. Also, all of those cold temperatures, the negative 50, 60 mile an hour wind was definitely seeping in, and it froze up our compost pile. That is why I shut everything off. And the fan's still running just because it's simple solar, but I was able to shut my little timer off so I don't break my pump. So as this is quite disappointing, it's actually kind of a good jump off point, so everybody can kind of follow along. There's a lot of people with smaller greenhouses. We have a 520 square foot greenhouse, and that's massive compared to this little thing, which we started in. This is where everything started. We started our channel in this little greenhouse with this little John Payne compost heating system. So getting back to the basics, we're going to kind of share this along, and I thought it'd be interesting because not everybody has a very large greenhouse, and this is like a medium small size greenhouse that is a good inspiration and good idea gathering for everybody, so you can kind of see what we're doing and how we're doing. So I'm going to get all of the materials allocated, and I'm going to get this urea mixed in, all of that good stuff, but I am going to bring an update video on that itself. I wanted to come out and talk about all this and show what was going on after this major storm here. We finally got some sunlight in a few weeks here, and it is really, really nice to be able to come out and sit in the sun because this greenhouse is certainly warming up. It's very insulated. The passive heating of the sun is amazing. It's probably like 70 degrees in here right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of these crops don't bounce back. Like our lettuces and our kales, they're kind of droopy, but I believe they'll stay alive. You can see all our leeks and onions. There's a lot of stuff in there. There's some heading collards. Those are doing all right. All our radishes and stuff in between there definitely saw those cold temperatures and did not react well. So they are not as cold hardy. And I kind of figured it wasn't going to be looking very good for the crops when I came out here this morning because of these cold temperatures. We haven't had any sunlight, and when we don't have that passive energy from the sun, it is just relying on strictly compost heating. So if you don't have any heating, you're going to have major insulation factors on the entire greenhouse. And when you're building a hoop house like this, it's obviously the cheapest way to go, but you're also going to have to put a lot of energy into insulating or heating the greenhouse, and both of those are major factors when growing in winter here. So everybody stay tuned as I get all the materials together, rebuild that pile, and kind of step by step that, and then I'll mash it up where I can show the actual pile heated up and all that good stuff. So I won't piece it out too much. I really want to show how I'm doing this and the process behind it. And coming back from a major freeze in the greenhouse, you can hear everything dripping and melting because we had ice all over the inside of the greenhouse. So it's not always perfect conditions. We do have failures even with all of this experience with John Payne compost heating. We've got a very successful large greenhouse, but the lack of commitment on this little greenhouse, I haven't put a whole lot of energy into this, and I was going to get that pile reallocated before that major polar blast came through, and that thing just shut all of the activity down in our compost. It really couldn't stand up to that, even with 3 or 4 leaf bags deep insulating that whole pile all the way around. It just wasn't a match for it. I'd like to thank everybody, thank all my subscribers, everybody for following along, and definitely stay tuned so we can get some more heat coming in this greenhouse, and I can kind of share the process behind that.